Back again, this time with another one of my retro book hauls. So just in case you didn't see my other video about this, I have purchased a number of books in the last 1.5 to 2 years that I didn't show in any videos. So I put up a poll on my community tab and almost everybody said, yeah, show us the books. So this is box number 2. And the first one in this box is Trollop on the Net by Ellen Moody. I saw this on Steve Donahue's channel, and my understanding is this is essentially an online discussion between a number of people about Anthony Trollop's books. I thought that sounded intriguing, so I found myself a nice used copy. And I actually really like this cover. If you look at the text that's swirling across it, those are actually the usernames of people that I'm assuming were on this forum or part of this discussion. It could have been a Facebook or something. I'm not really sure. But yeah, I really, really like this cover. The next book in the box is something I also saw on Steve Donahue's channel called The Literary Ghost. Great Contemporary Ghost Stories, edited by Larry Dark. I love this cover. So I found a pretty decent used copy. It's in good condition except for the corner here. I think an animal chewed it. Those are definitely teeth marks. But otherwise, it's really in good condition. It does have a little bit of that little spotting that happens. I forgot what that's called. On the edges, just a little bit. But it's fine. It's a perfectly good copy, and I'm really excited to read this. I'll probably read this in October of 24. Another book I picked up was the new annotated Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And of course, it's edited and annotated by Leslie S. Klinger. Shawn D. Standfast made such a big deal about the annotated Dracula by this guy that I absolutely had to get the Leslie Klinger Frankenstein. So Frankenstein's one of my all-time favorite novels. I absolutely love that book. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see what Leslie Klinger does with the Frankenstein novel. So something that I did this past year was I finally watched The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and absolutely it blew my mind. That is easily one of the best movies I've ever seen, and it's for sure, oh God, oh my God. Okay, there's a spider, hold on. Okay, sorry about that. There was a spider on my wall, so I had to stop and kill it. So I was talking about The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. So, okay. So I watched that book. So I watched that movie, absolutely loved it, thought it was fantastic, and ended up buying 3 books about it. One of them is just a photo novel of The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and instead of having drawings inside it like a graphic novel would or a comic, it has still shots of the movie. I'll just show you a few of them in there. I'm definitely not a graphic novel or comic fan, but I'm making an exception for the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. The next book is the BMI Film Classics Guide for the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I've heard Shawn talk about these a number of times, and from my understanding, it just has a lot of information about the production of the movie and the people involved in its making. And then I found this one called The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Texts, Contexts, and Histories by Mike Budd, the editor. So my understanding of this is that it is essentially a much more comprehensive book with a lot of more information about the making of this movie and the circumstances surrounding it. So this is one that I'm really looking forward to reading. Okay, the next book I have is Trilby by George Demure. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. But I do believe that this is all about a hypnotist who gets control over a pretty and young actress, and through the power-upness of hypnosis forces her to work for him. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he might even marry her or try to marry her in this book. I don't remember all the details. It's been a really, really long time, but I just remember I really, really liked it. And so I would like to read this again. The next book is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I actually do have another copy of this in a World Cloud Classics edition, but as I discovered when I was reading my Word Cloud Classics edition of Dracula, it was poorly edited. And I don't trust that series of books. So I went ahead and picked up the Oxford Classics edition. The next one is Station Eternity by Muir Lafferty. The Midsolar Murders. So this is a series. I think there's only 2 books out, but this sounded really interesting to me. It's a science fiction novel about this woman who, for some mysterious reason, people just die around her. And so she moves out to the space station in order to prevent people, to minimize the number of people who die around her. But apparently it doesn't work. And that's pretty much all I know about this. But it is a much newer science fiction novel. I think it just came out in the last few years. And I've been wanting to try more newer science fiction novels. This one sounds like it's going to be pretty good. The next one is A Bear Called Paddington by Michael Bond and illustrated by Peggy Fortnum. So I picked this up because I saw Shawn talk about this book in a video, and he just loved it so much. And it was just so delightful to see him so excited about a story that I decided I had to read it for myself. The next book in the box is Norwood by Charles Portis. Oh, he wrote True Grit. I forgot about this book. This is about, as far as I can remember, a man who goes on some kind of a road trip and has adventures. It was Charles Portis's first novel, and that's the main reason I was interested in reading it. But I gotta say, I love the chicken on the cover. The next book in the box is A Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter M. Miller Jr. with an introduction by Mary Doria Russell. So I feel like everybody has read this book, and I'm like the only person who has not read it. So I had decided at some point that I really need to read this book. I can't remember what all it's about, but I'm certain that it takes place in like a post-apocalyptic world. And I think it's all about humanity sort of rebuilding itself, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, definitely need to read this so that I can participate in the discussions that take place about this book. The next book in the box is Sweeney Todd, The String of Pearls by James Malcolm Reimer. So I saw the movie about Sweeney Todd that had Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter in it, and I didn't really care for it too much, so I never really thought about reading the book or anything. Sorry, that was my cat jumping up on the cat shelf from my desktop. But anyways, I saw Mark at Book Time with Elvis talk about this, and it sounded really intriguing to me. So I went ahead and picked up a copy to see if I'll like it myself. Okay, the next 2 books in the box are A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers, a monk and robot book, and its sequel, I think this is just a duology, called A Psalm for the Wild Built. So yeah, there has been a big deal made about these 2 books on BookTube. Not really with the people that I am friends with on BookTube, but I've seen it around with a lot of other BookTubers, like especially like the millennial crowd. And so because I'm wanting to try newer science fiction, I am definitely curious to see if I will like these. Now, somebody who shares my taste in science fiction also read this first book, and he didn't really care for it. So I don't know if I'll like it or not, but I really want to give it a try. The next book in the box is A Short History of Humanity, A New History of Old Europe by Johannes Krauss and Thomas Trapp, translated by Caroline Waite. So this is actually a book about DNA, genetics, and I did actually start to listen to this on audiobook, but no, I cannot. I'm not going to be able to do this on audiobook. I'm going to have to actually read the book because there is too much complex information in here, and I am not a scientist or even a person who is, educated in this subject. I just have like a really strong interest in it. So I'm going to have to actually start this book again and actually read it. But what I listened to on the audiobook did sound very intriguing, so I'm actually kind of excited about this. So I'll probably read it sooner rather than later. So the next book in the box is The Apocalypse 7 by Jean Doucette. So the main reason I picked this book up was because of the author, Jean Doucette. He wrote this book, The Spaceship Next Door. And I think it also had a sequel too, but I can't remember. But anyways, I find this man's books appealing. The synopses are always appealing to me. So this man wakes up and thinks it's possible that he's the only man left on Earth because something has happened. He doesn't know what, but everybody's gone. Vegetation has grown up overnight. But he does eventually run into some other survivors. And my understanding is they spend the book trying to figure out what's going on and also to survive. Sounds like an interesting premise. I don't know that I'll read this right away, but I definitely want to read this at some point. The next book in the box is The Last Word by Taylor Adams. This is a thriller, but I actually don't remember which thriller this is. and I'm not too worried about it. I have a number of these and I just kind of like pick them out when I'm in the mood for a thriller and I choose the cover that I like the best. The next one in the box is Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. So I wasn't at first interested in reading this book, but I saw Rebecca talk about this, and it sounds absolutely intriguing, and it sounds just like the kind of book I would like. So I went ahead and picked it up to read for myself. So the next book in the box is Watchers by Dean R. Koontz. I found this in a little free library, and I'm getting the Island of Dr. Moreau feelings from the synopsis of this. So there are some animals that have been genetically engineered and are more human-like, and the scientists are trying to recapture them. So yeah, this sounds interesting, and I don't know when I'll get to this, but definitely at some point I will. The next book in the box is Below the Edge of Darkness by Edith Wider, a memoir of exploring light and life in the deep sea, which probably doesn't need an explanation. I'm sure that tells you everything you need to know. But I really, really like these sort of memoirs where the person is talking about an animal or plant that they're studying or some place on Earth that they are studying. That is actually a new interest for me. I've only read a few of them, but the ones that I have read, I've absolutely loved. So I am kind of excited to read this one. So I'll probably be reading this sooner rather than later. The next book in the box is From a Buick 8 by Stephen King. I actually don't know what this is about, but it has a car on it, and I loved Christine. So I imagine I'm probably going to like this too. I don't know if the car is evil or not, but I'm going to find out. Oh, and that's the last book in the box, apparently. Okay, so we'll call that the end of the video, and I'll be back again with more book hauls.